Howdy folks, Doc here with Last Best Tool. I've got an interesting one today. This is the Katsu FA01 Tactical Folding Axe. It's an axis lock kind of tactical axe thing. Has G10 scales over the top of these titanium coated carbon or stainless steel handle rails, carbon fiber overlays here, and a really beefy D2 steel blade. The axis lock, because it's an axis lock, kind of like Benchmade here, where you can release it and flick it out, the mass of the blade here is enough that once you break it free from that initial detent, you can flick it out for whatever reason. It's not a bearded axe. You know, a lot of axes, this isn't a bearded one either, but they might have a great big blade drop here to get your hand underneath it, and that was a battle axe feature. You don't do a whole lot of axe battling anymore, but it weighs a ton. It's 880 grams. I don't know what that is in American, but it's a lot. Pound and a half maybe. 40, no, it's almost 2 pounds. But this is an unusual piece of art that also chops wood. It comes from the factory shaving sharp. I mean, look at that. That's just crazy for a big, thick blade like that. It's reminiscent of the Grand Force Bruck axes when they arrive. Trying to hold on to my paper here, but you can see it's just razor sharp. If I can hold it on a little bit of paper I've got there. Anyway, and it also chops wood. Now, it's about 5 below zero at the moment here. It's getting on its way to about 20 below tonight, maybe a little bit more. So I don't have a chunk of wood handy, but you know, when I chop into it, it's reminiscent of a lot of these other smaller choppers. Let me point out some things, because I like these odd shaped designs. It's a really cool design in terms of the form factor here, because sometimes, you know, here's a hand hatchet. It was a Grand Force Bruck hand hatchet for comparison, and oddly, this thing's pretty pricey. It's going to be plus or minus $250 depending on the discount. On the website, they say it has like a $460 retail value, but they're all over the place, including Amazon that I've got a link to, in the mid 200s. But it's you know, not the best axe. You know, I would rather have something else, except it does fold up flat. Comes in a little case. I'll show you that maybe at the end if I remember, but let's go through a few things. A lot of times the spread of the blade here is what gives a hatchet its kind of cutting prowess. Here's a Gerber, Fiskars. It's hard to tell the difference these days. They might be the same. You can see it's got a uniform wedge there versus the way Grand Force Bruck approaches it. A lot of kind of weird or unique shaped axes, like this Council Tool Apocalypse axe. Apocalypse, I don't think they make this one anymore, but it's got a fairly narrow blade, so it doesn't really split all that well. Here's the Ontario Spax. It's kind of a World War II sort of combination tool. You can turn fire hydrants, I guess, with that end of it. It's got a really weird blade when you try to cut something because it's got too much curvature right in here, and a pick and a pry bar, you know, and some other features. This is a good one, I think, to have, you know, as like an emergency tool maybe in a car. Here is a CRKT Kangi T-Hawk. This is like a little tomahawk, kind of a unique shape. But again, the very thin blade here doesn't allow, you know, very good chopping as far as splitting wood. It might be good at processing the wood in small pieces, but trying to break things, it just sinks in like a nail. Estwing, their Tomahawk, this is probably, as far as I can tell, maybe designed more for throwing than for actually chopping anything, because they've got so many other tools that do a good job at that. But Oh, and by the way, you know, the price of Benchmades these days, it's pretty crazy. So, you know, makes a giant heavy tool like this seem quite reasonable. If Benchmade made this, it'd be, I'd guess, $600+, maybe more. But anyway, it's just a fun tool. If you're into that kind of that EDC aficionado space. Beautiful workmanship. I mean, it is a piece of art all the way around. If they want to command that price, you know, they sure can. Apparently, it's some kind of combination of minds between some Sakura blade and the, if you can see the other name, Nemoto Design, and then it's marketed by Katsu, which has a couple of other really high-end looking knives, and then a handful of just expensive, good-looking knives. Has this feature here where there is this object that you can unscrew down at the base. If you look closely at this, this is actually a Torx screwdriver. Try to get that to focus right there. That fits in to the Torx screws on the G10. I mean, excuse me, on the carbon fiber overlays here, or inlays. It's too small for the rest of the handle, should you want to take that apart. But it also has, if you notice up in here, there are some threads, so you can thread this thing in. And apparently, this dark spot on the end here also works as a glass breaker. So if you can't break the glass with the rest of this, you can use this little tiny thing. Of course, insert it into the end. But you can put this in here, and what that does is it drives an extra pin through the blade, so this actually locks it so it can't be opened. So I guess you could have a child safety feature there on your axe, or make sure it doesn't open somehow. But then once it is open, you can insert this. Now, here's something I want to show you. I don't know how much this actually does. And yes, I'm going to address the idea of having a pivot on a stress point on an axe. But anyway, if I release the axis lock here, pull this down, there's this much wiggle in the blade. It's locked in position by that little pin there. So that pin is not seating it, you know, with a lot of solidity there. You know, so it's just holding it within that play. But lock up with the axis is really solid. If you look at the blade design, it does have a bit of a swedge at the bottom. It's not sharpened down there. You've got, you know, the solid D2 steel out to this point right here where it begins basically a flat grind all the way directly to the edge, which means sharpening should be pretty easy, but you're probably going to take off, you know, just in mistakes of the angle. Probably take off the coating should you choose to use this hard. The back does not really help for batoning, because you can see if I wanted to chop straight down through a piece of wood like this, banging on the top, which is a technique. You can do that, you know, with some of these smaller hatchets. You can put something on there and then you can whack it. Not with the back of that. That's not what it's designed for, but you get what I mean. Whereas the rear end of this is more of, I don't know what, a weapon than the ability to baton it. This hole here, you could put something in that, because it is up here, so you could hang this without any trouble, and it does open freely with access to that hole. So if you wanted to put something there, you certainly could. Would also allow for another type of deployment if you want to play around with your buddies at the mall or something. But this is actually a beautiful piece of art. I've seen some images of it. I caught a couple of quick videos and thought that would be fun to try. So what does it actually do? Well, it does do some wood chopping, not my Grand Forest Brook wood, but you know, you can process wood, you can shave. You know, it's got some fun abilities in the way that you can hold it. It's designed to be choked up on or to use it as a striking tool. When I struck hard into the top of this, comparing some of these, it's pretty much the same. You don't have a lot of lever arm here. You'd have to go to something bigger. Price-wise, these are about $150 or more now, the little Grand Force Brooks, whatever these are, mini hatchets, which basically has the wildlife hatchet head on a very short handle. This is the Grand Force Brook mini hatchet. This is one of my favorites. Again, just razor sharp, very small. You know, you can see kind of how that compares. You know, both open and closed. So this was like an old school take, a little miniaturized one, but as far as processing wood, it's really nice. This is, you know, going to find its home in a different kind of kit. But anyway, there it is. If you wondered what these things were all about, here it is. You know, the Katsu F0 or F whatever FA01. In all its glory. And with that, Doc out.